All right. Welcome to the deep dive. You ready to dive in today?
Always ready to dive in.
Okay, excellent. Well, today we are looking at Quality Power. They're an Indian company that is making some pretty big waves, it seems, in the power equipment sector.
Yeah, they are.
And we've got this really interesting article here that is predicting their stock price all the way to 2050.
Wow.
So we're gonna be peering into the future today, and we'll see what we can find. The article is titled Quality Power Share Price Target 2025, 2026, 2030, 2040, 2050, and it was published on February 24, 2025.
Okay.
And then it was updated on February 27, 2025. So it's pretty up to date as far as these things go.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So I think it'll be pretty interesting to kind of see what they're thinking, and maybe we can kind of glean some insights from this, and then also just kind of talk about the energy market in general.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that'll be pretty interesting. So the company itself, Quality Power, what do they do?
Well, they make electrical equipment for power generation, transmission, and distribution. So like the big stuff, transformers, reactors, capacitor banks, all the really big, powerful stuff.
Yeah. Okay. High voltage stuff.
High voltage, yeah, that's their specialty, which is interesting because as the grid needs to handle more and more renewable energy, that high voltage stuff is becoming increasingly important.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so they're in a good spot right now, especially with India's growing need for power.
Right. And so they're not just like a small local company. I was looking at the article, and they have a surprisingly large customer base.
Yeah, 143 customers, both domestic and international.
Wow.
What's really interesting is 84% of their sales are actually international.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so they're a global player.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And speaking of not messing around, they had their IPO recently and raised a massive, I wrote down the number here, 859 crore. So what are they doing with all this cash?
Well, the article mentioned that they're planning to increase their production capacity, which makes sense if they're planning on growing. But then they're also investing heavily in new technologies. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Like, are they going to come up with some super, super high voltage equipment?
Right.
Are they going to branch out into new areas like smart grids or energy storage? I don't know. It's definitely exciting to see what they're going to do.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get ahead of ourselves, and we're already jumping into the future here,
Right.
let's take a look at their current financials.
Okay.
There's a section here in the article called Fundamental Data.
Yeah.
So maybe we can take a look at that.
Absolutely, yeah. Get a good snapshot of how they're doing financially.
Yeah. So first up, market cap, 3,045 crore. Now, I don't know about you, but
That's a pretty big number.
that sounds like a pretty big number to me.
It is. It is.
I mean, I'm no financial expert, but that seems like a pretty substantial company.
Yeah, especially for being, relatively new to the public market.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so they're big, but are they profitable? I mean, that's what really matters, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where the ROC and ROE come in.
Exactly.
Return on capital employed is 31.5%.
Wow.
And then return on equity is 28.1%.
Those are really, really strong numbers.
Yeah, so, I mean, just for someone like me who's not really, I don't know all the financial terms and that kind of stuff, what does that mean? Like, explain that to me.
So imagine you had a lemonade stand.
Okay.
ROC is like how much profit you make for every dollar you put into that lemonade stand. So the lemons, the sugar, the cups, all of that.
Right.
ROE is similar, but it's more focused on the profit you make compared to the money that you personally invested.
Okay.
So the higher those percentages are, the better you're doing at turning your investments into profit. And with those numbers, Quality Power is doing exceptionally well.
Wow. Okay, so high ROCE, ROE, good signs.
Very good signs.
Got it. Now, the article also mentions their PE ratio, which is 80.54, and they compare that to industry giants like Siemens and ABB.
Yeah.
What's the significance of that comparison?
So the PE ratio, it's the price to earnings ratio. Basically, it tells you how much investors are willing to pay for each rupee of the company's earnings. So comparing Quality Power to Siemens at 82.31 and ABB at 69.55, it shows that investors are valuing Quality Power quite highly, almost on par with these really established companies.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
It could mean that investors are really, really confident about their future growth potential.
Right.
But it also kind of begs the question, are they overvalued?
Right. Okay, so there's definitely some things to think about there.
Yeah, for sure.
But what's really interesting to me is these share price predictions.
Yes.
They're forecasting all the way out to 2050. It's like,
That's a long time.
yeah, that's a long time. So are you ready for some time travel?
Let's do it.
Okay. 2025, they're predicting a share price range of 330 to 660.
Okay.
So that's quite a range. What are they basing that on?
Well, they're factoring in the increased production capacity from their new manufacturing facility that they're building in Sangli, Maharashtra, and they're also banking on India's continued shift towards renewables,
Yeah.
which is creating a huge demand for their high voltage equipment.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like they're expecting some pretty significant growth in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But what about further down the line, like 2030?
1830, it jumps to 12,275 to 1,650.
Wow, okay.
So that's quite a leap. I mean, they're envisioning quality power becoming like a true industry leader by then,
Okay.
capitalizing on the growing demand for smart grids and energy efficient systems.
You keep mentioning smart grids. Like, what are those exactly?
So smart grids, they're basically modernized power grids
Okay.
that use, digital technology to improve efficiency, reliability, and sustainability. Okay, so think sensors, data analytics, automated controls, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And that's where Quality Power's expertise in high voltage equipment really comes into play.
Right.
They could be developing intelligent transformers and other equipment
Right.
that can seamlessly integrate with these smart grids,
Okay.
which will allow for better management of renewable energy sources and real-time optimization of the entire power system.
So they're not just providing the hardware. They're like becoming a part of this whole solution
Exactly.
for a smarter energy future.
Exactly. Yeah. They're not just, building the equipment. They're helping to create this smarter, more sustainable energy future.
That's pretty cool.
It is. It's really cool, and it shows they're thinking ahead and adapting to the changing needs of the energy sector.
Yeah.
But we've been talking about all this positive stuff, all these great predictions.
Right.
But we should probably take a step back for a second and look at some of the potential risks.
Yeah. Let's play devil's advocate for a second here.
Yeah.
What are some of the concerns that potential investors should be aware of?
Well, one major concern is their valuation.
Yeah.
Their PE ratio is currently at 188,
Okay.
which is pretty high compared to the industry average.
Okay.
It suggests that investors are expecting a lot of growth from Quality Power.
Right.
And if they don't deliver, that stock price could take a hit.
So there's a chance that they could be overvalued.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance.
Okay. What else?
Another potential red flag is the lack of dividend payouts.
Yeah.
They're not currently sharing any of their profits with shareholders,
Right.
which might make some investors hesitate.
Okay.
They could decide to start paying dividends in the future.
Right.
But for now, it's something to keep in mind.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, competition, I'm sure, is a huge factor as well, right?
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, they're up against some giants in the global market.
Yeah. Siemens,
Yeah.
ABB. These are companies with, decades of experience, tons of resources, global brand recognition. Quality Power is really going to have to, differentiate themselves, prove that they can compete.
It's interesting, though, how their focus on high voltage equipment could actually give them like an edge in this whole like world shifting to renewables and more interconnected grids.
Right.
Because those are areas where those established players might not be as nimble
That's a really good point.
or innovative.
Yeah, they could definitely carve out a niche for themselves by specializing in the technologies that are really crucial for this energy transition.
Right. Okay. So we've talked about the financials, the predictions, the risks, but I'm still curious about their international expansion plans. I mean, they already generate a huge chunk of their revenue from overseas markets.
Right.
But the article didn't really go into much detail about their strategies there.
Yeah, that's definitely something that would be interesting to dig into a little bit more. It's one thing to sell your products internationally, but it's a whole other thing to establish a strong presence in those markets and build those relationships with customers.
What are some of the challenges they might face as they expand globally?
Well, they'll need to navigate all these different regulatory environments,
Right.
different customer needs. They'll need to adapt their products and services accordingly. And of course, they'll be facing competition from local players who,
Right.
who already have a deeper understanding of those markets.
And let's not forget geopolitics, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, trade tensions, political instability, currency fluctuations.
All of that.
I mean, all that can impact their international operations.
It's a complex landscape out there.
Yeah.
It really is. But on the flip side, international expansion also presents these huge opportunities for growth.
Of course, yeah.
Right.
It's like a high-stakes game of chess, right?
Yeah.
You got to think several moves ahead.
Eh,
Anticipate challenges, but seize those opportunities as they arise.
Yeah. And it's not just about, expanding their market reach. It's about gaining exposure to new technologies and ideas,
Wow.
new business models
Right.
that can help them innovate and stay ahead of the curve.
Speaking of innovation, the article mentioned that they plan to invest in cutting-edge technologies.
Right.
I'm really curious about that. I mean, are we talking about just incremental improvements to their existing products, or is this something bigger?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the article doesn't, explicitly answer that, but based on the trends that we're seeing in the energy sector, there are a few areas where they could be focusing their efforts.
Okay, well, let's speculate a little bit. I mean,
All right.
what kind of cutting-edge technologies could they be pursuing?
Well, we've already talked about smart grids,
Right.
but that's really just the tip of the iceberg. I
Yeah.
mean, they could be exploring energy storage solutions like advanced batteries or pumped hydro systems,
Yeah.
which would be crucial for managing the intermittency of renewables.
Yeah, as more solar and wind power comes online,
Yeah.
we're going to need ways to store that energy
Yes.
for when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing.
Exactly, yeah. And then there's also the potential for microgrids,
Okay.
which are localized grids that can operate independently of the main power grid. These are becoming increasingly popular for enhancing resilience and reliability,
Mm.
especially in areas that are prone to power outages.
So they could be developing the equipment and the technology to enable this transition to a more decentralized
Exactly.
and resilient energy system.
Yeah. It's a pretty exciting vision.
It is.
And then, let's not forget the potential of AI and machine learning.
Right.
They could be developing AI-powered systems that can optimize grid performance, predict equipment failures. I mean, maybe even autonomously manage entire power systems.
Wow. It's crazy to think about how technology is really transforming the whole energy landscape.
It really is. And it seems like Quality Power is really trying to position themselves to be a leader in this transformation.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at their financials, their growth prospects, the risks, the opportunities, even their potential for innovation.
Mm-hmm.
What are your overall impressions of Quality Power?
I think they're definitely a company to watch.
Yeah.
They're operating in a really high growth industry.
Right.
They have a really strong track record of financial performance.
Yeah.
And they seem to be, strategically positioning themselves for the future.
I'm inclined to agree,
Yeah.
but it's always important to remember that, investing is a gamble and there are no guarantees.
Right.
But based on what we've discussed today,
Yeah.
it seems like they're a company that warrants further research.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Quality Power presents a very compelling case for further research and consideration.
Yeah.
They have the potential to be a major player in this global energy transition.
Yeah.
And it will be fascinating to see how their story unfolds in the coming years.
Wow, so we've really gone deep today, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
I mean, we from their financials all the way to the potential of smart grids and microgrids. It's been a whirlwind tour of India's energy landscape and kind of Quality Power's role in it.
Yeah, it really highlights how interconnected everything is. Like from these global trends to the technological innovations, and then these strategic decisions that companies like Quality Power are making. They're all kind of playing a part in this massive energy transformation that's happening all around us.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of those strategic decisions, I keep coming back to this this statement that they made in the article about investing in cutting edge technologies for superior energy solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to get at is, are they just kind of refining their existing product lines, or are they thinking bigger? Are they potentially venturing into totally new areas within the energy sector?
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure. I mean, obviously we don't have a crystal ball or anything.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it's safe to say that they're not just talking about minor tweaks to their transformers and reactors and stuff. I mean, remember, they raised almost 159 crore through their IPO.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
And it signals, a real commitment to innovation.
Okay, so let's put on our futurist hats for a minute.
All right.
What kind of bold moves could they be considering?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what could those superior energy solutions actually look like in practice?
Well, I mean, we've talked about smart grids and microgrids,
Right.
but those are kind of just the foundation,
Yeah.
right? Imagine them developing like advanced energy storage solutions
Okay.
that
Yeah.
could capture excess solar and wind power
Right.
and then release it back to the grid when it's needed.
Right.
So they could kind of smooth out those fluctuations of renewable energy,
Okay.
make it more reliable.
That would be huge. I mean, everyone's talking about the shift to renewables, but the ability to actually store that energy
Mm-hmm.
efficiently and cost effectively
Right.
is a major hurdle.
Absolutely.
And if they could figure that out, I mean,
They'd be in a really powerful position.
they would be in a very powerful position, pun intended.
Yeah, pun intended.
And then there's the whole energy management systems thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, imagine them developing like software platforms that use AI
Mm-hmm.
to optimize energy consumption in buildings and factories and even cities.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, they could really leverage their expertise
Mm.
in power systems
Right.
to become a leader in this emerging field.
Yeah. I mean, so they could go from being just, a hardware provider to a software and services provider,
Yeah.
offering these really comprehensive energy solutions.
Okay, I have to admit, I'm starting to get a little excited about the possibilities here.
It's exciting stuff.
But before we get carried away with all these futuristic scenarios,
Right.
let's bring it back down to earth for a minute.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some of the practical challenges that they might face in pursuing these goals?
Well, I mean, innovation is inherently risky, right?
Of course.
I mean, they could invest a ton of money in a new technology only to find out that it's not, commercially viable or
Right.
that a competitor beats them to market.
Right.
So they'll have to be strategic about their investments and be willing to pivot if they need to.
And attracting and retaining top talent, I imagine, is going to be key.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're talking about, highly specialized fields, AI, software development, advanced materials science. I mean, those are competitive markets.
Very competitive. Yeah, they're going to have to create like a culture of innovation, a place where talented people want to work and can thrive.
Okay, so we've explored the potential, the challenges, the big what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
As we wrap up today's deep dive, what's the one key takeaway that you want our listener to walk away with?
I think the key takeaway is that Quality Power is a company at a crossroads.
Okay.
They've built a really solid foundation with their
Mhm.
with their high voltage equipment business,
Right.
but they're clearly not content with just staying where they are.
No.
They're looking to the future. They're embracing innovation, and they're positioning themselves to be a leader in this whole energy transition thing.
Yeah, I think that makes them a company worth watching.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Even if we don't have all the answers today.
Right, yeah.
Their story is just beginning.
Exactly, and that's what makes these deep dives so fascinating, right? We get to kind of peek into the world of these companies, understand the forces that are shaping their future, and hopefully, spark some curiosity and further exploration for people listening.
So to our listener, if this conversation has piqued your interest, don't stop here. I mean, dig deeper, do your own research, and just see where your own deep dive into Quality Power takes you.
Exactly.
And with that, I think we'll wrap up today's episode.
Sounds good.
So until next time, keep those knowledge gears turning.